Allora, ragazzi, ragazze, siamo qui per l'ultimo talk della mattinata, che sarà un talk in inglese perché abbiamo un ospite internazionale. Dopo aver fatto naturalmente tutto questa mattina con AWS, GCP e Microsoft, abbiamo completato il quadro dei top, dei big cloud vendor mondiali con Alibaba Cloud. Quindi ora switcho in inglese per presentare il prossimo speaker e poi appunto sentiremo il talk in inglese. He is a senior solution architect in Alibaba Cloud Intelligence. He has 12 years of experience in IT consulting, cloud architecting, and cybersecurity. He joined Alibaba Cloud 5 years ago, and he covered several roles such as cloud architect and DevOps cloud native training instructor to support European enterprises adopt cloud technologies in a secure and cloud native way. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on our virtual stage Zhang.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Where are you?
I'm based in Paris, actually.
In Paris. Okay. Okay, so we're all in Europe.
Yeah,
What's
in
the
the
weather
same
like
time
in
zone.
Paris? Is it snowing today?
It was good. It's good. Yeah.
Okay, so we covered pretty much the entire Europe, starting from London and then at the bottom with the Sicily. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll leave you with your talk, and we'll talk later with the Q&A session. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Buongiorno. Thank you, everyone. In today's session, I would like to share our serverless technology behind our shop, the world biggest shopping festival, which is Double 11. So first of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Yan. I'm the senior solution architect. I'm working for Alibaba Cloud to cover our France office and also the South Europe territory. So also I will be your technical interface for all the Italian customer and partners. So thanks a lot for Spark Fabric for this opportunity to have this sharing session. Unfortunately, I cannot do this session in Italian, so I will do the presentation in English. But for any question, if you feel free to raise your question in the chat. Okay, thank you all. First of all, I would like to give you a very quick introduction about Alibaba Cloud infrastructure. You may heard a lot about AWS, Google, and other cloud vendors, but for Alibaba, it might be a little bit not so familiar for Italian customer and partners. I just want to emphasize we already provide more than 28 regions globally, and it covers more than 85 availability zones. That means the data centers. And especially in Europe, in European region, we have two regions. First one is Frankfurt region. We have 3 data centers in Frankfurt and 2 data centers in London to provide disaster recovery capabilities. Besides our cloud region, we also have more than 2,800 CDN nodes to help you to do the last mile content delivery. By our CDN nodes, it covers more than 200 countries and the regions. So you can see here we are very present in the Asia Pacific region, especially in China mainland. We have around 13 regions. Around 45 data centers. But in Asia Pacific, we cover all the major countries. In Europe, we are present, but not as present as our friends, American friends. But anyway, we can provide very comprehensive products from our Frankfurt and London data center to our Italian customer and partners. Okay. That's the first part. The second part is about the Double 11 Shopping Festival and the technology behind it. Let me introduce first of all what is a so-called Double 11 Shopping Festival. It's also called single day, as anything with one, it means single in China. Actually, before 2009, this day means nothing for the Chinese consumer. At the beginning, this day was chosen as the shopping festival by Alibaba Group to promote our marketplace products, especially from our Taobao and the Tmall platform. But it proved a very big success because this is the number which generated in just 24 hours, the 74 billion US dollar of the GM, which in just 24 hours is even much more bigger than the Black Friday in USA and in Europe. So in order to support such kind of volume, especially for more than 500 orders per second at the peak hour, we need a very scalable infrastructure to support all of this. So let's move on to the next part, which is we can tell from these numbers to know how many traffic we must to handle during the shopping festival. So we can also tell from the numbers with our evolution of Alibaba technical framework and the cloud infrastructure. At the very beginning, we are using the monolithic architecture as same as other e-commerce platform. But then since we have a big success of the Double 11 shopping festival, we have some bottleneck regarding the larger numbers of orders per second, especially during the peak hour of this shopping festival. So we have to do some evolution. So we decide to choose some more cloud native architecture, such as containerized architecture. And at the year of 2028, 27, and 28, the group decide to move our architecture to the microservice and the serverless architecture. Why we made this decision? Because the biggest challenge of our technology architecture is actually we have a very complicated business scenario. We need to use the current architecture to increase the efficiency and reduce the cost at meanwhile. But from the perspective of the R&D, we have very, very complicated business scenario. So we need a serverless framework to handle the issue, to make the R&D as simple as possible, especially for the backend service as a service. And the biggest challenge focus on the technical level in Alibaba infrastructure. The dependency between different applications are very complex. There may be hundreds of service dependency, plus a dozen or even dozen of standard product dependency, such as database service, messenger service, and middleware service. So at the same time, a single application may become more and more bloated over time. So it's difficult to do the debug or to the development, and especially when it's put on production, you may have a performance issue, especially during the shopping festival. So in order to make the application as light as possible, we made the technical decision strategy move on serverless. So the serverless, it can help us to make the application as light as possible. As mentioned before, even every application of Alibaba Group has the dependency. So if the dependency are not standard, a new unit needs to be created for each business complexity, business link. So we decided to change our whole framework in order to meet the requirement. So you can tell from here, we are leveraging the front end and back end service by using the serverless technologies. And besides that, we are also changing our infrastructure into the green technology in order to reduce the carbon emission and also to make a more immersive user experience. Actually, this kind of infrastructure is actually the most, I would say, is the biggest practice test for the cloud native technology, and especially for the serverless technology. We are using this serverless technology infrastructure to support the largest real-time computing platform, to support ultra-large container cluster and mesh cluster, and we are handling more than 10 billion QPS. Here is the more details about the serverless architecture on the Alibaba Cloud side. So here is the big picture for all the serverless related technology and service we provide from our public cloud portal. And you can see for the integrations with third-party message queue, Kafka, we support the serverless mode. And for the microservice, of course, the web application firewall, the CDN, the application real-time monitoring service, etc. You don't need any monolithic architecture to be deployed. They are all serverless. And for the AI-related service, like platform of AI, the chatbot service are also serverless. And for the storage part, we, similar to the other cloud vendor, we provide different kind of storage service for the structured data, unstructured data, and they are all hosted in the serverless infrastructure. And for the database service, for the major mainstream database engine can be hosted on top of our RDS engine. So they are also in the serverless infrastructure. And for the big data product family, we provide our own data warehouse solution, which is called Max Compute, and is also using the serverless on the infrastructure part. And the three of the most important serverless service we can directly provide a serverless capability is so-called function compute and serverless Kubernetes cluster, and also the serverless application engines. We'll tell from this picture by presenting the functionality of each service here. So from the bottom layer, you can tell we provide the public cloud infrastructure or the hybrid or even private infrastructure to our end user. But anyway, from the infrastructure, we can always provide the cloud service, either it's private, hybrid, or public. So on the cloud service part, especially if the customer decide to use containerized platform, we provide our Kubernetes container cluster for the managed Kubernetes, and also for the serverless Kubernetes as well. And for the serverless Kubernetes, you can easily choose the elastic container instance to meet your business requirement. And if you want to manage your application in a serverless way, you can easily use the serverless application engine, SAE. And for the function as a service, equivalent to AWS Lambda, we provide a service called function compute. So you can easily define your function by any programming language you prefer, like Python or Java. You just define your function and using the trigger event, the event trigger to execute your function and you can even define your function as a workflow to create your serverless workflow. So here is the position regarding the different serverless service. And if you just want to provide a serverless infrastructure, you can easily leverage the elastic container instance. So the elastic container instance can be used to serve the boundaries to scale your infrastructure, especially containerized infrastructure. And if you want to manage your serverless container framework, you can choose a service called serverless Kubernetes. So serverless Kubernetes will trigger the ECI resource on request. Just waiting, it depends on the configuration you defined, and in some perfect condition, it will trigger the ECI to scale out or scale in. And it will meet your requirement to deploy your pods on top of ECI. And if you want to manage your serverless application, if, for example, to achieve the move to cloud migration, to do the to Apple migration, you can just choose the serverless application engine. It will help you to provide a microservice-oriented UI user interface and API, and you can abstract the concept of the applications and free the users from the OEM work, and they can focus on the Kubernetes itself. And the last level is the function level. So you can put everything as a function, to be honest. Yeah, you define your function by your own. You can just make all your deployment as a function and use the function, trigger the function in request and with some predefined condition. And by using the function compute, SAE, serverless Kubernetes, and ECI, you can easily build your serverless architecture on the Alibaba Cloud. So comparing to, if we just deep dive into each products on the ASK serverless Kubernetes, you don't have to pay for the management service. You just pay for the workload. For example, just on request, I deployed, for example, 10 ports for my front-end application. By leveraging the ECI resource, you pay only for 10 ports resource consumption. You don't have to deploy a whole cluster just in advance. That's the biggest advantage, and it can help you to handle the auto-scaling scenario. For example, if you have a very stable requirement, you may need to build a standard Kubernetes cluster. But if you have some on-demand workload and you need to complete the limited resource provided by the standard Kubernetes cluster, you can just deploy more Kubernetes ports by leveraging the serverless Kubernetes. And you need to, it is suitable to handle the batch task, scale out for some unexpected workload, and it can also be leveraged to deploy your CI/CD testing or CI/CD pipeline. The next part is called SAE, and this service is equivalent to, you can consider it's equivalent to AWS Application Runner or GCP Cloud Run. It's an out-of-box microservice and the Kubernetes cluster. It can help you to use the Spring Cloud, Double, or HSF applications with zero code modifications. So basically, it's based on the Kubernetes cluster, but it's a platform as a service, so you don't need to manage the infra. You just need to care about how to manage your application itself, how to define the lifecycle, the permission management, and how to define your one-stop microservice governance and define your OM workflow directly from this framework. The next service is called function compute. This is equivalent to, for example, to AWS Lambda. It's a fully managed and event-driven computing resource. So you use function compute to define whatever you want by uploading your code. You don't need to purchase any resource in advance, and you don't need to purchase any infrastructure. You just need to define what you want to do. For example, I want to, write some log on the log service. I want to write some message on the Kafka, or I want to read the Kafka message and trigger some action to my Kubernetes cluster to deploy some new ports, new applications, etc. So for any kind of operations you want define, you define it by your own using the code. So that's the principle. I think the same principle we shared with the other cloud vendors. Now let's move on to some serverless best practice and reference case. And we can tell from here. Here is one technology company it's called iSchool. It's an online English education company. So the developer of an application is called 蜻蜓 英语. This application is one of the best tools to practice the English for the Chinese students. And this application provides massive English audio and video material with bilingual script. So the audio files need to be balanced, and short video need to be transcoded. That's the technical requirement. And some machine learning empowered NLP features need to also be provided to translate the speech into the script. So here is the technical requirement, and how could the customer leverage the function compute to achieve this goal. So they uploaded the audio and the video files into the OSS, which is equivalent to AWS S3 as the storage service for the unstructured data storage. So once the file is uploaded, you can define your trigger on the OSS trigger and to automatically trigger the transcoding function. And you define a function by your own on the function compute side to leverage Ali Cloud or some third-party NLP functionality and transcoding functionality to transcode the file. And once the file is transcoded, finished, it will transfer the transcoded file to another OSS bucket for example, for the different class of storage to save the cost to the lower class, for example, for the archive class. So the benefit here is you can quickly develop and launch everything is automated. So, and it can reduce your OM cost and reduce the storage cost, and it can be highly customized by defining your function compute script. Well, another scenario is also on the VOD, video on demand transcoding solution. You can theoretically, as a teacher, as the service provider, you upload your files into the OSS, and the trigger of OSS will trigger the different function, and you can even define a function workflow. Not only one single function, you can define workflow with different conditions, and then you can easily dispatch your function, your files into different storage service such as NAS or OSS. Function compute can also integrate with the container ecosystem. It provides image deployment and the seamless switch from the original container deployment method. You can the advantage by leveraging function compute into the containerized architecture lifecycle is this method can migrate some standalone application at a very low cost. You don't need to require any OM on the infrastructure part. You use function compute code to deploy and migrate the application, and you can support a very flexible auto-scaling scenario. You can leverage the serverless container in service by leveraging the ECI, and can reduce your OM and IT cost. So here is the detailed migration scenario to migrate some microservice or application code from any platform to the cloud platform. You can, for example, if your application type is monolithic or some microservice application, you can always package the code by different format of package, and you use some image repository service like GitHub or some other third-party repository, and you define the deployment method and deployment framework. If it's a microservice or serverless framework, you can use Spring Cloud or Docker. And finally, you can manage all your lifecycle and auto-scaling or the different scenario of release by SAE. The advantage is O&M free comparing to the monolithic hosting solution by using a VM. And last but not least is about some open source project you can directly test and download from the GitHub. So Alibaba Group, Alibaba Cloud, we commit a lot for the open source ecosystem. Recently, we provided a serverless developer platform. It's called a Serverless Dev. It's based on serverless architecture for lightweight CI/CD framework. Serverless dev is a running in serverless architecture of powerful and flexible, safe and low cost CI/CD open source framework. It can, through this platform, developer can not only experience multi-cloud serverless products with just some few clicks, and it can rapidly deploy serverless projects. It can also manage your project in the whole life cycle in serverless application way. So basically, you can find more details from the link I provided on the chart. But I would like to just to give you some demo regarding how to test it. For example, this is our online sandbox, the hands-on lab environment. So if you are interested, I can share more details and some hands-on lab coupon to all the participants today. The idea is to deploy a sandbox environment, then achieve some labs. In this lab, the target is to use the serverless dev, which is the framework I mentioned. Use this open source project to manage the function computing resource. Could be Ali Cloud function compute, could be AWS Lambda, could be some third party, some other cloud platform functions. Here, the process here is to firstly we have to install serverless dev as the package, and we should do the necessary configuration to make it communicate with function compute, and to deploy the service, and from the VM as you can consider you are the coder, you are the programmer, you are modifying the source code and push the source code to repository, and the repository will automatically clone the source code and to the function compute functions, and use the function compute function to modify the scenes in the OSS bucket. And once the client sends some request and they put the files on the OSS, this kind of result can also be synchronized. That's the target. And in order to start a lab, you have to click here to start a lab, and you can go directly from here to open Alibaba Cloud Console. So here in this sandbox environment, sandbox account, everything is temporary. So no worry about the IP, etc. It will be removed soon in how many? In 70 minutes. Anyway, you can get the IP address in order to get free remote access. And for the step one, in order to install the serverless dev package, you just need to, for example, copy paste this URL, and then you can just test you have to export the variable of the system variable in order to get access to the path, and then just type s/v to get the version of a current serverless dev package. In order to communicate with Ali Cloud Function Compute, similar way is by using the RAM and the sub-user, you have to declare access key. By providing the pair of access key ID and access key secret, you just need to configure everything, and from the terminal, you can easily get the details about your account ID, security ID, and access key ID, etc. to confirm you have the full control and full access to the target environment. The step 3 is to install Docker. I think it's quite standard. I already installed it, and by this command we can double check the Docker is in the running state, and we can quit. And then to deploy the service, we have some sample service. It just called Jungle block service, and you can specify when deploying the service using serverless dev framework. You have to specify which cloud provider you want to deploy. I will do it again. If, for example, you can choose project name, and then you can choose the cloud vendor. I already configured. By the access key I provide, I'm choosing Ali Cloud as the vendor. Then you can choose the deployment regions. Here is the list of all the 28 regions. You can specify even the availability zones later on. Okay. So once the service is deployed, is correctly configured. You just deploy the service bar as deploy. I already deploy. It takes time, so I do it in advance. And now you can copy paste this URL in order to verify the service is running. Okay, so I have double checked the services were successfully deployed by serverless dev. Then the step 2, you can use serverless dev to remotely trigger or define the function compute. So here I have my function compute console from Ali Cloud side. Of course, you can use CLI or the console any way you preferred. You just need to switch to the target region. Here is the region related to this lab, which is Singapore region. So you can clearly see, yes, by the function compute service, we successfully deployed the code to the Ali Cloud Singapore region, and we define the source code by the serverless dev framework. Well, okay, and then you can also go back to the folder and to delete. Always use the serverless dev to remove this function, and you here list the name of the function and the trigger, etc. Just confirm, and this function will be removed as well. Now there is no longer no data found. Okay, everything was removed by the serverless dev. Okay, now you can also generate the SSH key pair to be monitored by some repository management service. Here could be this service is our source. Our is called a source code pipeline service provided by Alibaba. But of course, you can use some other repository management service. The idea here is to create the repository. It's called a front-end repository, and then do the necessary configuration. For example, to provide the remote access method like SSH or HTTPS to get access to your service. And you can use since the GitLab, you can use git clone to get remote access. And then you can just run the command to define the file to the workspace and to commit your modification to the repository, upload the file to the repository, and finally, this modification will be synchronized to the GUI. And the next step is to prepare the bucket for the storage bucket called OSS bucket. So on the OSS bucket, you can easily prepare the file called my SSH execution, and you put your IC file also on the content for the SSH key, So this kind of content can be generated and managed by your own. So I already did it from the OSS bucket. So you can tell from here, I already have this bucket and I got the necessary files deployed. I could attach these two files into, yes, and upload. Of course, this kind of operation can be done by command line as well. Once we provided the access key, secret key, it can be done by any method you want. Okay, the next step is to run the functions. You can always use the same framework and to deploy the function, and then specify the function region, function service name, and the function name. Everything necessary required by Ali Cloud Function Compute Service. And if it's for AWS Lambda, it will be different options here. Well, you can run the function and start the function, and you can even modify the code directly from your command line and upload the code to the Function Compute Service. Then finally, once you deployed this new service, it will be also deployed as a new service declared in the Singapore region. So I don't have enough time to do everything, but I can share you all the necessary hands-on lab link after this session, and you can practice by your own if you are interested in. Okay, this service is called Hello World service, and in this service, you can see the source code has been deployed, and then if it's possible, normally you don't have to modify anything, but you can just double check the trigger type is HTTP trigger. So that means if someone calls this trigger from internet or from intranet, this function will be executed. So in your repository management system, in any repository management system, you can define the webhooks. Okay, you just need to copy paste the trigger from function compute console to your repository management system, and you can define the trigger type is push event. And if if you have some source code push has been done on your repository, then it will trigger this URL and finally execute the function compute script, and this code will be executed. So that if we do the test, so you can just do some dummy modification and upload to the repository service, and then everything will be automated. That means it's function compute who will do the necessary job to synchronize everything to your OSS bucket. And for your client, this even transparent to your client. The client will only request to the OSS to see the result of your data processing. And finally, it can handle all your client's requirements. Okay, here is the end of my session. I would like to pass to the Q&A part.
Okay, Jan, I have just one question for you. If we as European users, Italian users, if we want to test or learn Alibaba Cloud serverless services, is there any learning portal or free learning support from Alibaba Cloud?
Yeah, that's a good question. I already demonstrate our hands-on lab platform, right? So if you are interested in this platform, you can just scan this QR code. We prepared some free hands-on lab coupons to help you practice on this platform. In this platform, we provide not only serverless topic, we provide very comprehensive hands-on labs for big data scenario, for also the infrastructure as a service, for database service, and so on. So anyway, This is a Christmas gift from Alibaba Cloud. So if you are interested, you can just scan the code or just type this link on your browser to apply this free hands-on lab coupons.
Okay, thank you very much. And I can ask you another question. Are there any official certifications from Alibaba for cloud engineers?
Yeah, that's good. Also a very good question. We provide a certification system. It's called ACA certification. I will give you the link. Sorry. Switch to English. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the link is edualibabacloud.com. You can see the certification framework here. So we provide role-based certification for if you are, for example, if you are solution architect, you can go to and you are interested in cloud computing direction, you can go to the cloud computing certification from associate level to professional level, then go to the expert level. And we also organize some free online training sessions delivered by my colleague, who is also located in Paris. And we can share all the necessary information, after the session.
Okay. So thank you very much, Jan. It was a very, very interesting and brilliant talk. So I hope we see next time in a new conf. So for now, I will say bye-bye to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ciao.